Good morning. Finding Love with Anne. It's October, so we're thinking about fall, and we're thinking, why is it not cooling down yet? But other than that, this fall season, we're using the idea of the fall season as a symbol for us all month to fall in love with and have an ongoing love affair with life itself. The fullness and the allness of life itself and all that that means. To support and inspire this month's exploration, we're using a different poem each week from the Sufi poet Rumi, and he's absolutely one of my favorites. And what is such a neat connection there is that we have a friend who's Persian, and she absolutely adores Rumi as well. As you know, Rumi is a Persian poet. So that's what we're doing. We're falling in love with life, and we're being inspired by Rumi. Can't think of anything better, right? Good combination. So before the specifics of today and the Rumi quote that inspired them, and actually you're going to get two. You're going to get two Rumi quotes. I want to share something else on this idea of falling in love with life. Who recognizes the name of Pam Grout? Yeah, not yet? Okay, we'll have to introduce you to Pam Grout. She wrote the book E Squared, and it's a book of really cool experiments. There's like 8 experiments in there. If you don't have it, we might be able to get you a copy of it just so you can do the experiments. It's so much fun. We did an actual 8-week class with it, and we went home, we did the experiments, we all came back and reported on them. And we had some amazing, amazing things that happened. I know that Thelma, one of them was planting seeds, and you had an egg carton and you put on one row, all beans. Yeah, they were all beans. So you just planted them in each of the egg carton compartments, and on one row, we focus good, positive thoughts. On the other row, we ignored it. We didn't send bad thoughts or anything. We just ignored it. And lo and behold, every one of us had this row grow higher than the other row.
Except, didn't you?
Well, I couldn't look at it because you see the whole box. Somebody looked at it and the whole thing grew. I had to see it in my mind.
Oh, well.
In my mind, I saw one side. Anyway, long story short, I promised them I would plant them, and I hate gardening. But I promised I'd plant them. So I did plant them. And then for some reason, 2 tomato seeds got dropped and 2 tomato bush things came up. They grew, and they left room for this one green bean. They grew onto my porch, onto my railing.
So she had such good positive things going on.
I was almost afraid of them.
It was kind of like that. What was it, the killer tomato? Or
yeah.
Okay.
I would almost get entangled when I would have to go way inside and get a tomato.
Saying, please love me, Thelma.
And Susie, 2, 3 came up
very
the
powerful.
And pulled them out.
So, the book E Squared, it's a book of cool experiments that we can conduct and prove to ourselves how incredibly powerful our consciousness is. And it's just kind of a lot of fun. She has a newer book called E Cubed, and she writes about what she's calling Worldview 2.0, a new and improved way of looking at the world. And here's the part about Worldview 2.0 that applies to our theme this month. Okay, she writes, in Worldview 2.0, you'll quickly come to realize that life is meant to be approached with exuberance and joy, and that follow your bliss is not an empty platitude for a bumper sticker, but rather a reasonable plan of action for your life. If that's not the way your life is playing out, then something is messed up. If magic isn't happening to you on a daily basis, if you're not waking up every morning with passion and zest, you're living in a horror picture that you concocted to entertain yourself. Wow, that pretty much confirms our theme, doesn't it?
Wow.
Okay, so I believe that we often have a chicken and egg relationship with life. Which comes first? Being happy, being in love with life, or having the experiences in our lives that brings us happiness, having experiences that we love? Our higher selves, our spiritual selves, will say that we know that happiness, loving life, is an inside job. That the outer world of conditions, well, they don't bring us happiness. That internal happiness has to come first. We know this spiritually and we know this intellectually, but it's rare that I sit with someone who's bereft because they aren't internally happy. 99% of the time they're sitting with me bereft because some outer condition is making them deeply, profoundly unhappy. And we all do this, don't we? We all get caught up in that, It grabs us sometimes before we're it's like you were saying, Thelma, your mouth reacted before your brain kicked in. And Just, it's like a,
And that's not unusual.
so we let those outer conditions control how happy or unhappy we are. Knowing the correct answer to this chicken and egg riddle doesn't mean that we live it consistently. But let me give you a real example of how it actually works. And this actually comes from the E Cubed book. Okay, so Pam Grout's previous book, E Squared, came out in early 2013. But here's a little known interesting fact, although Suzanne knew this. She actually wrote it and published it under a different name 9 years ago. But here's a curious thing. Instead of being an immediate hit like Grout assumed it would be, to quote her, it took a nosedive into the great sea of literary has-beens, quickly going out of print. She said, I waved a white flag, got busy writing 3 travel books for National Geographic, and didn't spend too much time obsessing. Okay, maybe a little bit of time. Then a few years ago, she decided to try again, so she dusted the book off, gave it a new title, and sent it to Hay House. And this time, the book became an international sensation. Isn't that interesting? Essentially, it was the same book, just a different title. Why did one trip on the way to the dance floor and the other waltz off into international stardom, to quote Grout? She gave 3 reasons. 1, the title E Squared may have been a tad bit more compelling than God Doesn't Have Bad Hair Days.
Oh,
Oh.
oh my God.
Number 2, the timing was better. Consciousness had evolved. The Secret came out about the same time that the first version had come out. So there hadn't been the time for the consciousness of everyone to get up to the level where they would see the law of attraction there. But she believes that the most important variable that was that her vibration had changed. In those 9 years, she had upgraded her consciousness. She said, like Hans and Franz from Saturday Night Live, she said to herself and to her joy channels, I'm going to pump you up. Pump up those joy channels, right? She got rid of a lot of negativity that was clogging the flow. Negativity clogs that flow of energy, as Joy will tell you. Keeps us blocked. She writes in E Cubed, I'd become committed to living in constant joy, another way of saying being in love with life. I began noticing all the blessings in my life, and as I became internally happy, my external world, which is nothing but a projector of my internal thoughts, began showing a different picture. In retrospect, I should have seen it coming. Oh, yeah. We all should have seen it coming, right? As we connect with the source of happiness within us, we become magnets for experiences in our lives that enhance our joy. We're just big magnets. I love that. So how do we connect? How do we connect? That's where we're going to go today. And Rumi inspires us with these words. You were born with potential. You were born with goodness and trust. You were born with ideals and dreams. You were born with greatness. You were born with wings. You are not meant for crawling, so don't. You have wings. Learn how to use them and fly. That's just beautiful, isn't that?
Mm-hmm.
So here's a recent note from the universe. Does anybody have the book, Notes from the Universe?
Like Dooleys?
Yeah,
Like
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so Notes from the Universe writes, wasn't it clever of me to think you up? I mean, come on. Never has there walked on the face of the earth someone who thinks with your degree of insight, who loves with your degree of care, or who feels with your degree of hope. And never has there been such a need for someone with gifts like yours, because at this very moment there are people only you can reach, and differences only you can make. Your number 1 fan, the universe. Such a great little book just to flip open and read. Today our conversation is around being willing to recognize and express our own greatness, which is how we connect with our internal I love life meter. When we find our diamond necklace, or when we learn that we weren't meant for crawling, but actually have wings to fly, we find love, the love of our life within. The truth is, you are unique. Each one of you is unique. Nobody in the world has quite the mix of your perspective, your sense of humor, your skills and abilities, and your potential. No one can be you as well as you can be you. You are an original, the likes of which the world has never before seen. There's a story of a good Jewish rabbi. He dies and he goes to heaven. And while reviewing his life, he explains to God that he tried to be as wise as Solomon. He tried to be as steadfast as David and as brave as Moses. That's all good, replies God, but why didn't you try to be yourself? I know with this setup, it sounds like I'm going to move into, how to live your life purpose, but I'm really not going to go there. Rather, I want to share with you an idea for connecting with that unique and wonderful self that you are, and it's called the triangle of a fully expressed life. So, there we go. All right. In order for us to fully be expressed, we must have a rich and robust experience of each of the points of the triangle. And then there's something that holds the triangle together like glue. So we start with wisdom, intuition, and guidance. The top of the triangle is our inner guidance system, our inherent wisdom, our connection with divine intelligence. It's ours to connect with, trust, and use. You might remember the story from Scripture of the one who was considered very, very wise, and that was Solomon. It's from Kings. And the story goes like two women who were harlots came to the king and stood before him. And one woman said, "Oh, my lord, this woman and I dwell in the same house, and I gave birth while she was in the house. Then it happened the third day after I had given birth that this woman also gave birth. And we were together, and no one was in the house. There was only the two of us. And this woman's son died in the night because she lay on him. And so she arose in the middle of the night and took my son from my side while the maidservant slept, and laid him at her bosom, and laid her dead child at my bosom. And when I rose in the morning to nurse my son, there he was dead. But when I had examined him in the morning, indeed, he was not the son I had borne." Then the other woman said, "No, but the living one is my son, and the dead one is your son." And the first woman said, "No, but the dead one is your son, and the living one is my son." Thus they spoke to the king. Then the king said, "Bring me a sword." So they brought a sword before the king, and the king said, "Divide the living child into two, and give half to one and half to the other." Then the woman whose son was living spoke to the king, for she yearned with compassion for her son, and she said, "O Lord, give her the living child, by no means kill him." But the other said, "Let him be neither mine nor hers, but divide him." So the king answered and said, "Give the first woman the living child, and by no means kill him. She is his mother." Now that is wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And an interesting aside, in Kings 1, where the story is relayed, we learn that because Solomon asked for wisdom, he got everything. "Seek ye first the kingdom, and all shall be added unto you." So a reading in the Jewish Torah goes like this: "Happy and free are those who find wisdom. She is more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire can compare to her. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace." Get wisdom, get insight. Do not forget. Okay, so now we're going to move on to heart, compassion, and care. The right bottom point of our triangle speaks to love, heart, and compassion. Emma Curtis Hopkins in Scientific Christian Mental Practice writes, "Love is the highest name of God. Love is the fulfilling of the law. At the height of our spiritual teachings, we find God covering us with love. It is well to say that God is unbounded, unlimited love. God is our love. There is an instinctive seeking of all things for love. Love is another name for life. Love is God. The heights and depths and splendors of love have not been told. It is the name of God. Love is not something which comes to us in any one man, woman, or child and then goes away. There is only the sign of love. Love, that is God, is eternal, and infinite. First for the self, and then for others." One of the first lessons that I had growing up on love was from my grandmother, and she was a nurse. Grew up during the Depression and worked, actually, she was born in 1899, so she was a nurse, became a nurse, I think, in the late, around 1918, 1919, 1920s, in there. So they had steady work, which was kind of nice for my mother's family growing up at that time in the Depression. But when she would come and stay with us, and she would listen, to us reading, and then we'd want to read to her, she would encourage us to read out loud. And she said, practice reading out loud. She says, it's such a gift to give someone who is perhaps ill or, in a rest home or needing care, the gift of your voice and your presence and to hear a story being told. And I think this is a lost art. I think that everyone takes their books maybe and goes in, but that was her way of nurse. When she was a nurse, it wasn't like it is today where you go in and you take care of everything. You took care of the patients and you spent time with them. And what a display of love. And that was my first, or one of the greatest lessons I really took from her was, take your gifts that you have. You can read. This is something you can share. And you don't realize what an impact it has for someone else. But what a love I had of reading. And you can share that with someone else and give them the gift of your time, your attention, your love. And so I think we all have stories like that where we share our love and our time, and it's just so very powerful. So moving on to personal empowerment. And this is the final point of our triangle, which is personal empowerment. And Marianne Williamson, this is one of my favorite readings, and I've read it before, but I'm going to read it again. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us. It is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. And we are liberated from our fear. And as we are liberated by our fear, our presence automatically liberates others. How powerful is that? How powerful are each and every one of us? So claim your personal power. What is right for you? What is not right for you? You have a right to proclaim it. And the glue that holds the points of the triangle together is the empowering energy of gratitude. Remember the words of Pam Grout when she said that the biggest difference between the lack of success of the first version of E Squared and the wild, successful version was that she turned up her joy meter and she started looking for all of the blessings in her life. Pump up that joy meter. I love that. So for 40 days leading up to Thanksgiving, beginning on October 18th, you get to do the same thing. Okay, so out on the table, you will find one of these. Transformation Through Thanksgiving, a 40-day journal that you can take. And it has pages inside that give you lines each day to list what you are grateful for. Yeah.
I love that idea.
Yeah, so it's a great little tool to use. So be sure to pick one up, and it starts on the 18th, so we got a little bit of time, but it goes right up to Thanksgiving. So it gets us really in the mood for the holiday season. So Ernest Holmes wrote in this thing called You, we can desecrate but never lose the divine spark. It is always there. Your spirit already is perfect. An individualized center in the consciousness of God. God has made you out of himself. The only material he had was the substance of his own being. The only mind he had to implant was his mind. The only spirit he had to impart was his own spirit. How empowering is that? You're made of God stuff. Wow, that's pretty awesome. If there is only one thing you know this. Know that you are truly God stuff. And so it is.